I'm Elaine Murray and I'm leader of Dumfries and Galloway Council. The Council continues to provide critical services right across the region in response to the coronavirus epidemic. We are updating our social media and our website regularly, but we have a new way of communicating with you. We are going to introduce a series of webinars which will be question and answer led sessions on a number of topics including children and young people, business support, community support and staffing issues. This will be your chance to get answers to the questions which you want to ask. I hope you enjoy taking part in the webinar. By working together, we will defeat COVID-19. Thank you for taking part.
Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to this online question and answer event. My name's Stephen. I work within the Council's Communications Unit. My day job involves social media, press inquiries and working with our councillors, so preventing live online events is fairly new. Tonight's topic is support for business throughout COVID-19. Whether you're joining us live or watching this back, I hope you find this a useful communications tool and a way of getting your questions answered. As I just mentioned, tonight's question and answer session will focus on business support. It would be fantastic if you keep your questions to this area of the work we're doing around COVID-19. There will be opportunities at future events to ask questions on other topics. We advertise these events well in advance on our website and on our social media channels. Keep an eye on there for future events and topics. I'll take you through the setup of how this will work before introducing our panellists tonight, who will be the ones answering your questions. I've got the easy job really, I'm just asking your questions on your behalf. Right, here's the terms and conditions part. Please bear with me. On the screen to my right, we'll have questions coming in live. I'll be reading these out and our panellists will be answering them to you, the viewers. As well as the questions coming in, for the great response pre-session questions, so these will be featured too. There will be some questions that we can't answer straight away, but we've got a couple of QI type colleagues in a dark room somewhere who will be able to assist in answering these, and we'll get back to as many questions as we can by the end of the Q&A. In relation to your answers, the software that we're using allows us to reply both privately and publicly. If you ask a question around, say, your own business grant application, this will be responded to in electronic format privately. But if you ask a question around, say, our plan for economic recovery, then this may be more suitable for a public reply, so will be answered directly by one of the panelists. For the questions that we can't answer, we'll commit to getting you an answer within 3 days, hence why we asked for your email address during the registration process. As I touched on, a recording of this will also be made available so you can watch it back. We'll put a post up on our social media channels to let you know when and where this recording is available. If there's anyone still tuned in after that, fair play to you. A couple more points from me before we get on with fielding your questions. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to participate in this new way of communicating with us. Secondly, and very briefly, our council's changed its structure to respond to this emergency. Instead of departments and services, we have cells. Each response service is working as a cell to allow us to protect the most vulnerable and to continue to provide these vital services to help us move through this emergency. If you hear me or the panelists refer to cells tonight, then that's what we mean by it. In effect, a cell is a temporary department in which we're all working. So let me introduce tonight's panel. We're joined by the Council's Deputy Leader, Councillor Rob Davidson. Rob, welcome. Could you give the viewers a brief overview of how you're finding it as a councillor operating during COVID in order to how we're making key decisions and how you're finding working in these unprecedented times?
Well, thanks, Stephen. Delighted to be here tonight. It's certainly a very different new way of working, that's for sure. We're doing most things remotely, but we're still available to members of the public by phone and by email. We're taking up their inquiries and working with the officers of the council who are now reorganised into the cells you were talking about in order to try and assist them in whatever that they're needing help with. It's a very different and new way of working. I think our staff are responding magnificently to the challenges of these very difficult times.
Thanks very much, Rob. Also joining us is Lorna Campbell. Lorna manages our council tax and non-domestic rates team. We have been administering the Scottish Government business grants to those with a non-domestic rating liability. Lorna, is there anything I've missed there that you would like to add to yours?
No, I think that's fine, Stephen. You've covered a lot of the areas that I cover. There is an additional area which is benefits as well. That's a whole different topic, so I'll let you get on.
And completing the panel tonight is Lynn Burgess. Lynn works in the delivery of economic development services to support the aims of our region economic strategy and council priorities. During COVID, Lynn's been working in the economic recovery cell. Lynn, is there anything that you would like to add?
I think it's just good to add that we're all working together across services, as Will has said, and it's made things much more flexible and much more responsive to the customer.
So there we are, that's tonight's panellists. Thank you for giving up the time to be here tonight, and I hope you enjoy the experience. A bit like being at the dentist, just try and relax, and I'll try and keep it as pain-free as possible. Sorry to any dentists that are watching. Okay, we'll get on with the questions. First one for yourself, Lynn, that came in beforehand. Hi, I need some help on what I can receive. I have a business in town, but my name doesn't appear to be on the rates. Can you help?
So it's quite difficult to comment on a specific business without more detail. So what I would suggest is that you have a look on our website, which is supportdg.dungal.gov.uk, and that's going to signpost you to a lot of information. There's a huge range of business support out there. If you've got a specific question, then you might want to go and help you. There's also the same website.
Lorna, one for yourself. I work in a solicitor's, which has already received a £10,000 grant for one of our offices. I believe that we're entitled to a 75% grant for our second office. What form do I use?
Stephen, yes, there was a phase 2 of the business grant process announced on the 5th of May in the Scottish Government, and there's a new form which is actually on our website. It's now one form, regardless of whether it's phase 1 or phase 2. And phase 2 is where 75% grant, so they access it through the business support website available to.
Very much. Lynn, is there any funding available for businesses who do not pay business rates due to them not owning a business property, rather renting space in a shared property?
Again, it's quite difficult to comment on individual businesses. There's a whole range of support out there. There's self-employed support. For businesses in particular, there's two funds that might draw attention to, which are administered by our South of Scotland partners and colleagues in South of Scotland Enterprise. So there's the Creative Tourism Hospitality Enterprise Hardship Fund, and there is a Pivotal Enterprise Fund, and that's currently closed or paused for applications, but that has just recently been doubled in value by the government from 45 million to 90 million. So those two funds are good places to start, and again they're on the supportdg.dungal.gov.uk website. In addition to those two funding sources, there's also loans available. So there's the Bounce Back Loan Scheme, which is a short term and 12 months without repayments, so that could be an attractive option for some businesses. And there's a Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, which is for a bit bigger applications. Again, I would direct people to have a look at the website. There's a lot more information on there.
Great. Coming back to you again, Lynn. We are a removal company. Furloughing has helped pay our staff, but we cannot simply continue without any help. We do not qualify for small rates relief and do not fit into the category for the higher grant, as we're not retail or hospitality. What help is out there for our kind of business?
So that's I would direct that business to the same two funds that we talked about, the South of Scotland Enterprise Fund for Pivotal Enterprises, particularly, which will reopen sometime in the next week. Again, the Bounce Back Loan Scheme, which is no repayments for 12 months and a fixed interest rate of 2.5% thereafter, and it's 100% backed by the government, so it's a favourable loan scheme. And additionally, we're looking as a service at the gaps and feeding those back to Scottish Government as well to consider what we might be able to do to help businesses. The more information that comes in from businesses, then we're feeding that back. And so things are changing all the time, so I would advise people to keep looking at the website.
Thanks so much for all the questions so far. We're starting to see some live ones come in. We'll take a live one now. It says, I have a question regarding grants. A similar firm was successful in getting a 25,000 grant, but we were unsuccessful based on the same circumstances. Can you help us with this?
Again, it probably, as Lynn said, it's difficult to comment on in individual cases. We need to have a look at it. There is specific criteria for qualifying for a £25,000 grant. Now, while business may seem similar, it will depend on if they were on the rating system at the time, at 17th March, if their description in the rateable system is an eligible system. So again, it's if the business wants to contact us directly, we can look at their individual back with an answer on it. But you know, there is a set criteria and it should apply to all businesses. So if one's qualifying and one's not, there will be differences in there.
We've had a couple of messages in, folks, to say that the sound quality is not great for you guys watching, so we will try and speak up a bit. If we do appear to be shouting at you, then apologies, it's just so that everyone can hear. Lynn, can I come to you now? What help is out there for micro businesses that have had their income drop through no fault of their own and don't qualify for any normal government schemes?
Again, that's quite difficult. We'll be saying this all the time. It's difficult to comment and we need more information. So I can't say it often enough. Look at the website, phone the helpline to get specific advice. But there's a raft of schemes out there. There's self-employment schemes. If you're self-employed, you might be able to get income support via HMRC, or if you're newly self-employed, through a scheme that's administered by the council. You're able to defer a self-assessment payment for your VAT. And there's going to be rates relief applied to businesses, so it's really particular to the business. So again, look at the website.
Lorna, we've had one in beforehand that says we've had no income since the 18th of March and are awaiting the rateable grant of £10,000. Where is it? Why have you opened up the 75% grant application now when some businesses are still waiting on that 100% grant?
So there's two elements to that, Stephen. Obviously, we've had, since the scheme opened on the 25th of March, we've had nearly 3,000 applications. We have been working through them in due order. Some have been easier to process than others. If the current person's already the rate payer and had all the relevant reliefs that met the qualifying criteria, we could process them quickly. We've had a number of claims where it has been more challenging because of information missing. Everything is there to allow us to process it. We have been going back to businesses. Again, if there's a specific business that hasn't heard and they've had an application form in for some time, I would urge them to contact us and we can have a look to see why it's taken so long. With regard to phase 2 and the 75% grant, what I would say to listeners is this is a Scottish Government scheme that's been administered on behalf of the Scottish Government by the Council. We don't actually have control over when the scheme opened and when phase 2 opened. So the Scottish Government announced it would go live on the 5th of May, and as a council we've had to respond to that, even though we haven't been able to clear all the grants that have applied, and the 100% scheme that is still open, it will still be open to the 31st of March 2021, so there'll still be grants coming in over some time. Again, I would urge the listener to contact us about their specific grant.
Taking our live question now. It says, we run a land-based training company within Dumfries and have noticed other grants which are aimed at hospitality. Will any grants be aimed towards training companies, as this is important to us for future employment?
I think that one falls into the category of keep looking at the website, because I can't stress enough how this is a constantly evolving situation, and so there's constant updates to the grants that are available, and they will be put onto our both. I'll give you two websites. There's a supportdg.dumgal.gov.uk and the other one is findbusinesssupport.gov.scot. Both these websites will direct you to all the information on a daily basis as up to date as possible.
Stephen, can I also say on that point, I think it would be really useful for us to know more about that company's situation and what they're offering, because I take on board the point about what they provide potentially being very important to how we start getting things moving again in the future. I think we've probably got some questions coming up about that. The more we understand about gaps in support that might actually affect how we are able to develop and move on from the current situation, I think will be really important, particularly as we're working with South of Scotland Enterprise, and also with Scottish Government on what the next phases of getting business back to work.
We can certainly, anyone who puts a question in either beforehand or live has registered, so we have your contact details there. So it is certainly something we can do, Robert, is to get in contact with the businesses and individuals that are putting questions into us. Lynn, if I can come to yourself, I work in wholesale and retail trade. What grants are available to my business? I've been closed for weeks and can't pay my rent. This could lead to closure.
So again, look at the website, but there's a number of grants that I might point you to. If you are an employer, then you can look at the coronavirus job retention scheme. So you'll have heard about employees being furloughed, and that's where you get 80% of the employee wages through your PAYE scheme. That's administered by HMRC. That's a good support. If you're the ratepayer, then you'll be eligible for the grants which Lorna's team are administering. So that would be another good place to start. There are the Scottish Enterprise grants that I referred to earlier, the bounce back loan scheme, the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, and make sure you're taking advantage of all the deferrals. So you can defer VAT payments, self-assessment payments, and you may be eligible for rates relief over the coming year.
Thanks very much. Lorna, why are businesses who were given grants of 10,000 and more starting to open?
There was no part of the qualifying criteria that said you had to be shut to qualify for the 10 or the £25,000 grants. That wasn't in the eligibility. And obviously, as we start to come out of the current situation we're in, businesses will start to open. I think the grants that the Scottish Government have put out there is assisting businesses even start to reopen. It's likely that their business trade will not be the same as it was when it was closed. So this grant helps them to keep afloat and allows them to reopen when that happens.
Lynn, we've had a few questions in about self-employed people and freelancers as well. Why is there a gap in financial support for self-employed people who don't pay business rates?
So the self-employment schemes are focused in a different way. I think there's not necessarily a gap, although there will be some people who fall through the schemes that are available. There's two main schemes available. There's the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme, which is administered by HMRC, and that's just beginning to come online now. So HMRC will contact you if you're eligible for that. And if you've been self-employed over the last 3 years, they will look at your accounts, take an average of your income, and that will support you at 80% of your income up to a maximum of £2,500 per month. If you're newly self-employed, so you started since 6th of April 2019, then you might be eligible for the newly self-employed hardship fund, which is administered by the council, and you'll find details in the application form on the Support DG website, which we've referenced before. And I think I would refer again to what Rob has already mentioned, that we're also looking for people to get in touch. If they fall through the gaps in these schemes, please let us know.
Take another live question now. Hi, we have a successful business that supports events and conferences. It looks like we may have lost all of our work for the foreseeable future, possibly until a cure is found. Will there be any ongoing support to ensure we can survive this prolonged period? And how will the sector be serviced when the industry re-emerges?
The sound is awful, by the way. I think if you take that one first, I would refer to the coronavirus job retention scheme, which has been extended today, and that's going to. It was originally planned to be finished at the end of June. It's now been extended to the end of October. So things like that are changing on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's difficult to comment on what the support might be on an ongoing basis, but it's safe to say that there will be some support.
Part of the problem, if I can, Stephen, is that we don't know yet how long lockdown or a different version of lockdown is likely to last. We know that the current circumstances in Scotland will last until the end of this month at a minimum. We can then theorise ahead of that, which is, I think, included in the question as to which sectors of the economy are likely to be able to start working again and when. So we don't yet know what support will be needed and for how long it will be needed. because much of that will depend on decisions that have yet to be taken. But I think it'd be fair to say that we recognise that events, festivals, things that attract people in to the region are really important to our economy. So they would be one of the things, one of the areas of activity that we would want to be looking at supporting once we understand how long it may be before they're able to return to something approaching normality, or even to full operations as they were accustomed to just a few months or a few weeks ago.
Thanks very much, Rob. I'll come to yourself with one that came in before we got started tonight. So what's Dumfries and Galloway Council's position regarding the proposed, although postponed, tourism tax?
Thanks, Stephen. So the tourism tax, the transient visitor levy, I think is its formal name, is a discretionary levy which councils have the ability to apply if they feel that is appropriate in their own local circumstances. We had already looked at this as a council administration when it was announced, I think last year, if I remember rightly, and we had determined that it wouldn't fit Dumfries and Galloway. We want to grow tourism in Dumfries and Galloway, and so we felt that a levy was likely to be counterproductive. Given that was the case in normal circumstances, it would certainly be wrong to consider implementing such a levy now. And so the current council administration, Elaine Murray and I, have no plans to introduce a tourism tax in the lifetime of our council administration.
Thanks very much, Rob. For another live question, we're getting a great response to the live questions tonight, so thanks very much to everyone who's submitting those. Someone asks, are all the grants that are available processed by ourselves, or are some processed elsewhere?
Yes, Tim, I think there's a mixture in there. The council does process some grants, particularly obviously the ones based around on domestic retail, the self-employed stream, but there's another that are national benefits or grants that are being administered by some of the sorts of Scotland Employment Agency, and some and obviously some through HMRC. So there's a real range of people administering grants to support people.
Another live question here, an interesting point. I think my business is in one of the sectors that they closed for a long time due to contact with customers. Is there any support available to help diversify a business?
Well, that's one of the things that we're starting to look at in the tripartite working arrangement we've got between Dumfries and Galloway Council, Scottish Borders and South of Scotland Enterprise. Naturally, you'll understand that we had to focus on the emergency response in the first instance, processing the grants that we're still working on. And there are very large numbers of these, as we've already heard. But we also know that we've got to start looking at how we help business to diversify and adjust to new ways of working, because we have to assume now, I think, that we're not going to go back to business as usual, just strictly speaking, in the immediate future or indeed the medium term. To go back to one of my previous answers, we don't know exactly yet what that support will consist of, because we don't know yet which sectors of the economy are going to be able to go back to work and when and under what circumstances. But high up our thinking, I think it would be fair to say, is a recognition that we may very well need to support businesses to diversify into either different ways of working or different business areas in order for them to survive at all. The best I think I can offer at this point is that it's work in progress, but I think we can commit to continuing to engage with you and understand, for example, what it is that you're thinking of moving into, or what your business was to start with, and what you might need in order to help make that transition, and how we can help you do that. The more information that we get from you about what you're thinking in terms of how you're addressing this situation, the better we are going to be able to work out how we can help support you do it.
Thanks very much, Rob. Lynn, I'll come to you if I may. I'm on universal credit and I'm unable to access any of the available grants. Will the universal credit payment for newly self-employed people be extended, and is there any other help available to me?
So universal credit is a UK matter, and it has already been extended. The payment has increased by about £90 a month temporarily because of the coronavirus pandemic. And I think associated with that, there are other support options which I've made individual on. She's the expert on that.
I think where someone's on universal credit, it does passport them into other benefits. So if council tax liability, they should receive relief on their council tax. if they've got children, it may also access them into getting school meals, assistance with.
Thanks very much, Philomena. We've had 2 or 3 questions sort of broadly around this topic. We have 2 businesses in one premises. Were shut down, both the businesses were shut down and should be responsible for both businesses. Banks aren't lending as they should be. What alternative is there for the 2 businesses in one premises, as they can only receive 1 grant at the moment?
There was, now depending on how that's set up, the business grant was originally set up where it was only 1 grant for 1 business premises. The Scottish Government have did a slight change to the eligibility criterion there, and if there is a business that is already set up and the 2 businesses are registered as the joint ratepayers, they can now receive 2 separate grants, but they must be or have been already registered as joint ratepayers. If they're not, then again, similar to what Lynn had said earlier on, that we would encourage businesses to look at the business support assistance online to see the various grants that we covered earlier be available.
Just a follow-up to the diversification question, probably we had a couple of minutes ago. Follow-up questions come in there. For the diversification issue just answered, who would businesses or this particular business have a discussion with about that?
So I guess it would be with Lynn's team.
Yeah, I would say phone the helpline. Can I give that number?
Yeah,
it's 01387 260 280, and you'll get through to a business advisor there. Or if it's a matter of reopening just now in line with Scottish Government guidance or changing your business model to trade online, then you might want to speak to trading standards or environmental health. And if you email support DG, you'll find that there's a contact email there as well.
Lynn, is there any financial support available for a health and social care related partnership registered last year?
Again, that depends on the status of the business. So if you're self-employed, you qualify for the self-employed scheme, which is today the newly self-employed hardship fund has been extended to include partnerships. I'm not sure of the nature of the business there, so some of the other Scottish Enterprise South of Scotland administered loans and grant schemes might be of interest to you. Again, I would direct
you. What funding will be available if the lockdown continues over the next 3 months? This person, they don't see their business having a queue of customers, so what support is available for them?
And I think I'm going to repeat myself again there. That's an iterative thing that's happening, that the government are looking at this on a day-to-day basis. Things are changing, so the support, for example, today the job retention funding has been extended to October, so there's new sources of funding coming on all the time. So again, look at the Support DG website, specifically look at the business support, and you'll find there's a link there to a information updated daily by North Lanarkshire Council, which gives all of the schemes that are available. That's a really useful document for people to have a look at.
Okay. Thanks very much. We're experiencing a high volume of questions coming in, so it might be that we can't get through them all, but we will get back to everyone within 3 days. So if your question doesn't get read out live, then rest assured you will get a response. We'll take one that's just come in there. Is there a contact within the Scottish Government we can contact to draw attention to the gaps in the grant funding?
I think I would say that the contact that you should make and could make is with your sector support organisation, the FSB, the Chamber, SCDI, any of these sort of business intermediary organisations. They're in touch with the government. That's a good way to do that.
Well, I think also to say that certainly I would be interested in hearing about particular gaps in grant funding. So in the first instance, liaising directly with South of Scotland Enterprise, but also engaging with the Scottish Government through the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities, for example, which I'm doing on a fortnightly basis. And that's a very broad agenda, of course. It covers a wide range of things, but support for business is one of the items that is discussed then. So my email address is on the Dumfries and Galloway Council website. Feel free to drop me a line and explain the gaps that you've identified, because those will certainly be helpful in these ongoing discussions. And as Lynn said, because this is all moving so quickly, those discussions are taking place on a weekly basis, on an occasion on a daily basis, and things are continually being updated and changed. So the more information that we've got, the better able we are to put the case for expansions to schemes, changes in regulations, really anything that will allow us to get more assistance out into the system. So please get in touch.
Another live question now. We've produced an app for site safety on forestry sites. The app now has COVID-19 protocol tracking, and we're 90% complete with the app. Are there any grants which could help us finish this?
Yes, I think there's a business innovation. I don't have the details to hand, but I can find those. And if we've got contact details, there's a business innovation grant from the Scottish Government, which may be relevant for that.
That sounds like something that could be really good, actually.
So we've got your email address, so we'll get back to you on that one. Rob, we'll come to you with one that came in beforehand, if that's okay. I run a caravan site. Do you agree that social distancing can be achieved just as well on a site as it can be at home? The economy needs the support of tourism, and they're asking, do they have the support of this from our politicians?
Okay, so the first part of this, I think, depends on the nature of the caravan site and its layout and how it's going to be operated once it reopens. I can imagine that if all the correct procedures are put in place in terms of social distancing, operating safely should be possible. The issue, of course, at this point will be that travelling to a caravan is, at the moment, non-essential travel, and therefore shouldn't be undertaken. So I think that is probably the biggest obstacle to these sorts of enterprises restarting until the end of May, depending on the guidance that we receive in due course. But I can see how, with the right safeguards in place, it could be operated perfectly safely. The economy in this region, tourism is a really important part of Dumfries and Galloway's economy. It has been one of our aims to try and grow the tourism market in Dumfries and Galloway by promoting the region and everything that we have to offer to a wider market. To do so more aggressively is maybe not the right word, but certainly to be proud about everything we have to offer and try and get that to a wider audience. And of course, COVID-19 has upset all of those plans, as it has upset all of your plans. But in terms of support for tourism, absolutely you have our support, and your success when we get out of the other side of this and are able to start to get back to a new normal, or back to normal indeed, will be really important to the overall recovery of our region's economy.
Very much. We touched on diversification. Can we maybe touch on adaptation now? We've had a question in. Is the business recovery team working with environmental health and public health colleagues to make sure that there's consistency and sympathy in helping businesses adapt? And will Dumfries and Galloway Council help in giving a standardised approach for implementing changes in relation to distancing and so on, needed for these businesses that are very people focused?
So we have trading standards and environmental health in the economic recovery cell, and they are currently advising any businesses that approach us on how to resume trading safely and in line with Scottish Government guidance. So that can be accessed via the Support DG website, the helpline, and the email inbox.
Very much, Anne. Come to you again. What support's out there for childminders? Predominantly self-employed, different tax return rules to allow us claims in our tax returns. Can't work at the moment, can't claim any grants because they're not classed as a business because they work from home. So what assistance is out there for childminders?
So childminders, because they're self-employed, the two schemes that I referred to earlier for self-employed, income support scheme, which is the national scheme via HMRC, which will give 80% of profits. I take the point there then that 80% of profits for some industries won't be sufficient. And in that case, then we would advise looking at universal credit to support that person. And again, if they're newly self-employed, if they're set up as a childminder within the last year, they'd be eligible for the newly self-employed hardship fund, and that can be applied for via the Council Support DG website.
We'll take another couple of live questions, and then we've got a couple of questions that came in beforehand, and then we'll look to wrap up maybe in 5 or 10 minutes time. Lorna, I think it was yourself that answered this one. Can you clarify if two businesses operate from the same premises, but only one of the names of these businesses are on the rates, what can they do? I guess the other business, what can they do?
So if it's only one name on the rates, then it's the person on the rates that would claim the business support grant. However, the other business who operates there could access other support grants that are available, and it would up on to go to the business support website and look at the various supports that are detailed through there to see if they fit into any of those criteria for support.
Lynn, is there any help towards those businesses that are younger than 3 years old but older than 12 months old? So I guess in that sort of 1 to 3 year kind of area.
I don't think there's any help specifically targeted in that kind of context of business longevity, if you like, but they are eligible to apply for the funding which is available if they're the ratepayer, for example, or for the Pivotal Enterprise Fund, which is administered by South Scotland Enterprise. They're able to access the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme. They're able to defer VAT and self-assessment payments. And they'll be eligible for rates relief. So again, it's look at the full range of support that's available and see what they can apply for again on the website.
One of the question about timelines, I guess. How long is the queue still for the 100% grants? 3 weeks ago it was at 6,000, and we're doing around 500 a fortnight. So sort of based on 24 weeks, is there any way that we can give a sort of estimate of where someone is in the queue and how quickly and effectively we're working through those applications?
So where we're at the moment, I said earlier that we've had 3,000, just short of 3,000, through the 6,000 came from, thank goodness it's not 6,000. We've had 3,000 applications since March. We've processed just over 2,500 now, and the queue thing's a bit difficult because there's applications came in today that we're starting to process today. So if it's straightforward and it comes in that day, we're likely to pay within 1 or 2 days. The difficulty is where they're not straightforward. So it could be that they're not the liable party, they don't have the relevant reliefs. If they haven't completed the form, answered the questions, or supplied support and information, that requires us to go back to individuals and actually chase that up, and that depends when that information comes in. So at the moment, we have, as I said, we've just about 380 processes, applications for grants outstanding. We hope to get through these obviously as quick as possible. So it's not going to take us 24 weeks to get through 380 what we've got at the moment. A lot will depend on how quickly we get information from those who have applied if they need it, or sometimes some of them are still waiting on decisions. There's still some grey areas in the guidance from the Scottish Government, and some of them are holding, waiting for clarification from the Scottish Government if we proceed with processing them.
And we've gone back to those businesses with email, phone, the usual sorts of ways that we communicate.
Yes, if they need more information, we'll go to businesses.
Thank you. Rob, if I could come to yourself, what help will there be when businesses open but the economy has collapsed and there are no customers?
Well, this really is the big issue that we already have been starting to look at, but of course we naturally had to concentrate on the emergency response, I suppose, in terms of getting the systems in order to pay the very large amounts of grant funding that we've been dealing with, and our colleagues in South of Scotland Enterprise very much in a similar situation. But we all know that it's highly unlikely we will simply be able to press a button and for businesses to be able to go back to work exactly as they were accustomed to. And we think that it is likely, therefore, that we will need to create systems of support for businesses in order to diversify, as we had one question earlier on, simply to restock and be able to get started up again, potentially to change the layouts of their premises or their operating practices in order to observe social distancing. Some of that depends, of course, on, in fact, a lot of it depends on what the decisions are on lockdown and the phased approach that's taken to exiting it, which sectors are allowed to go back to work and when, and also under what circumstances. So a lot of this is still not particularly clear because it depends on decisions that have yet to be taken. And it also depends very much on us starting to assess what businesses feel they're going to need in order to be able to start operating in what everyone's starting to refer to as the new normal. That won't be the way that everyone did business in the past, I think we can be sure. So we need both that information from business and also to have the steer from national government on who is going to be able to go back to work and when and how they're going to be able to go back to work. Again, I think as I said earlier, the commitment that we can give is to be clear with you about what we're developing and how you'll be able to access that support. And what you can do in the meantime is to help us, I think, by telling us what you think you're going to need as you're working out your own business circumstances and how you think you're going to be able to operate as we all start receiving that guidance on how we are going to be able to start to go back to work and trade and shop and go about our business again. So if you can help us with that, I think that will make our response much more comprehensive and much more responsive to your needs.
Thanks very much, Rob. Finish up there. Can I just thank the panelists again for their time tonight? I think those answers were absolutely spot on, and we have committed to go back to anyone who hasn't had their question answered, as I say, within 3 days. As we all mentioned in our answers, I think that our website is definitely the first port of contact. So that's supportdg.dungal.gov.uk. There's a support for business section up the top left-hand corner, I think it is, off memory. So I would encourage you to have a look there. Thanks again for taking part tonight. The response has been absolutely fantastic. We have committed to delivering one of these sessions on business support every 2 weeks throughout COVID-19 using this exact format. We're also facilitating a community support online question and answer session every fortnight, running on alternate Tuesdays. So the next community support one will be Tuesday the 19th of May at 7 o'clock, and the next business support one will be Tuesday the 26th of May at 7 o'clock. Thanks again for participating and watching, and can I just say, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.